Imagine walking into a bank. You deposit 1 bar of gold. The banker gives you a piece of paper. He says, "This paper represents your gold." You nod, because carrying gold around is inconvenient. But here's the strange part. Years later, the paper is still circulating. People are trading it, buying houses with it, building nations with it. But the gold? It's no longer there. Welcome to one of the greatest financial plot twists in human history. The moment humanity quietly moved from money backed by something real to money backed by belief. Today, we call it fiat money, and the story of how we got here is filled with kings, wars, bank runs, political panic, and one shocking weekend in 1971 that changed the global economy forever. Let's begin. The age of real money. For most of human history, money wasn't an idea, it was a thing. Gold, silver, salt, cowrie shells, even giant stone discs on the island of Yap. These were called commodity money. Why? Because the money itself had intrinsic value. Gold wasn't just money, it was jewelry. Silver wasn't just money, it was tools, utensils, and art. Money worked because it had 3 properties: scarcity, durability, and universal desirability. Gold checked every box. It doesn't rust, it's rare, it's divisible, and every civilization from ancient Egypt to the Roman Empire to Imperial China trusted it. But there was one problem. Gold is heavy. Imagine buying a house with sacks of metal. That's not commerce, that's weightlifting. So humanity invented something clever: the birth of paper money. Around the 7th century in Tang Dynasty China, merchants began depositing gold and coins with trusted warehouses. In return, they received paper receipts. These receipts said the bearer may redeem this paper for X amount of gold. And something fascinating happened. People stopped redeeming them. Instead, they simply traded the receipts. Paper became portable gold. Centuries later, European goldsmiths did the same thing. Gold goes into the vault, receipts go into circulation. Congratulations, you've just invented the banknote. At first, everything was honest. Every note represented real metal in storage. But bankers soon noticed something curious. Very few people ever came back for the gold, which led to a dangerous idea: the temptation. Imagine you run a bank. You hold 1,000 ounces of gold in your vault, but only 10% of customers withdraw at any given time. So you think, what if I issue receipts for 2,000 ounces? No one will notice. And just like that, fractional reserve banking was born. Banks began creating more paper claims than actual gold. The economy boomed. More money meant more trade, more loans, more investment. But it also meant something subtle. Money was slowly becoming detached from physical reality. Still, the system held together until governments got involved. The war problem. Here's a pattern you'll notice in history. Whenever governments face war, they run out of money. Wars are extremely expensive: armies, ships, weapons, supplies. Gold-backed systems limit how much money can be created, and politicians hate limits. So, during major wars, governments often suspend the gold standard. This happened during the Napoleonic Wars, World War I, and World War II. During World War I alone, countries printed enormous amounts of paper currency. Why? Because printing paper is easier than mining gold. The result? Massive inflation. After the wars, countries tried to return to the gold standard, but the system was fragile. And then came 1929, the Great Depression shock. When the Great Depression hit, banks collapsed. People panicked. They rushed to banks demanding their gold. These were called bank runs. But remember, banks had issued far more paper claims than actual gold, so vaults emptied quickly. In 1933, U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt made a radical decision. He banned private gold ownership. Citizens had to turn their gold over to the government. The U.S. then devalued the dollar against gold. In simple terms, your money suddenly bought less gold than before.
It was one of the biggest financial resets in modern history. But the gold standard still technically existed, just in a modified form. Until another crisis arrived: the Bretton Woods system. After World War II, the global economy needed stability. So, in 1944, 44 countries met in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. They created a new system. The US dollar would be the world reserve currency. Other currencies would be tied to the dollar, and the dollar would be tied to gold at $35 per ounce. So, effectively, gold to dollar to the world. But there was a catch. Foreign governments could redeem dollars for gold. Private citizens could not. For a while, it worked. The global economy exploded with growth. But by the late 1960s, a problem appeared. America was printing more dollars than it had gold. Sound familiar? The weekend the gold standard died. In August 1971, something extraordinary happened. President Nixon went on television. He made a shocking announcement. The U.S. would suspend the convertibility of dollars into gold. Temporarily, he said. But that temporary decision has now lasted more than 50 years. The gold window closed, and with it, the global gold standard ended. For the first time in human history, the world ran on entirely fiat currency, money backed by nothing but government authority and collective belief. What fiat money actually means? The word fiat comes from Latin. It means, "let it be done." Fiat money has value because a government declares it legal tender. You must accept it for debts. Taxes must be paid with it. But unlike gold, fiat money has no intrinsic value. A dollar bill is just paper. What gives it power is trust. Trust in governments, trust in central banks, trust that tomorrow others will still accept it. In other words, modern money is a shared illusion that works as long as everyone believes. Why the world didn't go back to gold? You might wonder, why didn't countries return to gold? The answer is surprisingly practical. Gold limits economic flexibility. If money supply is tied to gold mining, economies can't grow as fast. Fiat systems allow central banks to expand money during recessions, provide emergency liquidity during crises, and stabilize financial systems. Without fiat money, modern policies like quantitative easing would be impossible. But there is a trade-off. Fiat systems also make inflation easier, because creating money no longer requires digging metal from the earth. It requires pressing a button. The quiet debate still happening today. Even today, economists debate the question, was abandoning gold a mistake? Supporters of gold say gold prevents governments from debasing currency. Supporters of fiat say flexible money prevents economic collapse. The debate continues in the rise of Bitcoin and other digital assets. Some people see them as digital gold, a new attempt to create money that governments cannot print. History, it seems, is still experimenting. So the next time you hold a banknote or check your digital bank balance, remember something strange. For most of human history, money was a metal pulled from the ground. Today, it's mostly numbers on a screen. And yet the entire global economy, trillions of dollars of trade, billions of livelihoods, entire nations rising and falling, rests on something invisible. Not gold, not silver, but belief. If you enjoyed this journey down the rabbit hole of money, subscribe, because the next question is even more mind-bending. If money is just belief, who controls the belief? And what happens when people stop believing? Type belief in the comments if this changed how you see money, and I'll see you in the next story.